The surge in popularity in podcasts isn't by accident. According to Overlow, there are north of 850,000 active podcasts and 30 million podcasters worldwide. Meanwhile, Small Biz Genius reports that 144 million Americans listen to podcasts, or 51% of the U.S. population over the age of 12 has listened to a podcast at least once. So what's the key to making sure that your podcast stands out above the rest? Mike DiCioccio is someone who could provide you a pretty good answer to that very specific question. He's the founder of Social Chameleon, a podcast distribution and marketing company, which allows podcasters to work hand in hand with Social Chameleon to make sure that their podcasts and their diverse messages get out to a wide audience. Mike joined me this week to tell me how it works, reveal some intimate details of his personal life, what in his opinion makes a good podcast, to celebrate his Buffalo roots, and so much more. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, I'll welcome you to the program, and I'm excited to learn all about your personal life, your love of podcasting, and how you help podcasters deliver their message. Great to be with you this morning, and thank you so very much for being here.
Thanks for having me, my man.
So, Mike, you tell me that this year has been a tremendous year of growth for you. So I'm wondering if we can start our conversation by you elaborating on that for me this morning.
Yeah, absolutely. So obviously 2020 was saying a difficult year for many is really an understatement. I mean, it was devastating for many people in businesses. I talked to someone earlier who knows a lot of people. He's down in New York City. I'm in Western New York. And he was telling me how he was just naming off personal friends, connections, and people he knows that are boarded up. All sizes, large businesses in New York, medium size, and the corner store. And it was just hit my heart because it's a reflection of how real it is. Like when you hear the numbers, it doesn't always generate how much like that's actual people being influenced by the pandemic in a financial way. And then obviously in an even more devastating way, the losses of life. And I lost my grandmother in June, so just about a year ago. And my father passed away in December, both with COVID. And so it was, I want to share that you asked me about growth, but I just want to make sure that I'm not over here voicing, how great 2020 was, because it was obviously a ridiculous year that we all had to deal with. And just because 2021 hits doesn't mean that, everything just disappeared, right? So we're still dealing with it as we're doing this interview. With all that said, though, I do want to say with any adversity, we have the opportunity of what we do the next step that we take moving forward, right? And so when all that was dealt to me, it was kind of a kick that knocked me down for a little bit, stutter step, and it was an opportunity to reevaluate everything I was doing in business. And to give the audience a little backstory, I launched Social Chameleon in 2017, originally as a digital media and marketing company. We also focused on social media content. We did video ads and we ran Facebook and Instagram ads for everybody. The thing that I was doing that I recommend young entrepreneurs or people that are aspiring business owners and entrepreneurs, mistake I made that I would share with everybody is that I was trying to do too much. Okay. I was trying to monitor a jungle, right? Imagine a forest where, you're trying to figure out what's growing well. Where am I? I'm watering all over the place. What's turning green? Where are the weeds coming up? Too much to monitor. So I'd say get your 10 by 10 piece of land, plant the seeds, water it daily, go back and see where it's growing. If a weed pops up in that 10 by 10, you're going to be able to find it. You're going to isolate it and get rid of it. So once I did that, Kevin, that's when my business took off. So it took me about 3 years of some success, some failure, some success, some failure. It was all over the place. And I finally got laser focused and crystal clear on what we wanted to offer. And that was podcasting. I had my own podcast on the side called Mic'd Up with Mike DiCioccio. That was just a passion project I started. And because I took the leap in to do that, people took notice and were asking me, hey, can you actually help us with producing our podcast, either training us on how to do it or doing it for us? And the answer, of course, was yes. And so once I started to do that and the pandemic hit, a lot of the other services were kind of put on hold. The in-person video shoots, things that were actually needed to go into a business to, do a video, right? All that production was kind of on hold, if not canceled completely. And podcasting was steady Eddie. All my people that were sending me files, they didn't have to be in Buffalo, New York. It all started with one client, obviously. I was working with them at the beginning of the pandemic, and I ended up 10Xing it. And the way that I did that, to explain it, is simply being more focused and not trying to do everything, but trying to do some things extremely well.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. I want to pass along my condolences for the loss of your family members. I know that COVID has been a tremendous hardship on a lot of people, and I know that you want to carry your legacy, the legacy of your loved ones on, and it appears that you have done that. So I want to commend you for the work that you've done and pass along my most sincere of condolences, buddy.
Yeah, thank you, brother. I appreciate that, man.
So, Mike, when we dive into social chameleon, you touched on this a little bit about finding your focus in business, and I know that you help podcasters sort of get marketed out in terms of their messaging and the way they deliver their podcast. So I'm wondering if we could dive into social chameleon a little bit more.
Yeah, so appreciate that. What we focus on is really three things. We do podcasting done for you, right? So if you wanted everything from the audio, if you're doing a video interview like you do, we help you with that. We produce it. We can add the intro, outro. If you're doing a Zoom style interview, we do the overlay so it looks really good on YouTube. And so there's the production, the distribution side of it, which is helping people get it off to Apple, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, you name it. Get them where everybody's listening, obviously the most popular platforms, and then some. And then the other part of it's helping with the marketing and branding. Two separate things there, obviously. But the most important thing I can tell your audience, anyone who's doing podcasting now or considering it, is think about your episodes, whether it's 30 minutes you do, some people do a little bit more micro content, shorter, but whether it's 30 minutes or an hour, whatever that interview or whatever your podcast ends up being, think of that as like the major motion picture. Like if we were Steven Spielberg and we're putting out a blockbuster at Christmas, we would not release that on Christmas Day without promo, right? I mean, since Thanksgiving or even before that, Halloween, we'd be hitting with the 2-minute teaser trailer. And then people would be like, wow, we're really hooked on this. We want to hear more. We want to see more. We want to go to the theater to see it, or we're going to definitely get it when it comes out, right? So without those hooks in the water, it's very difficult to get someone or anticipate or expect somebody to listen to the long form content. So what we're doing to help out podcasters is, because we've noticed one of the bottlenecks is they spend all this time and energy. They prepare for the interview like you do really well. They do a great interview. They get the files. They either edit it themselves. They hire someone to do the audio or video. They try to do the distribution themselves or hire someone. Then they're like, what else do we got to do, right? The social media content. And it's a big play to get it all done and do it well. And so they do all that, but then all that time and energy may feel lost when you go and look and you see like 2 people downloaded it, because you're expecting them to go and get that full production. So what I recommend and what we help our clients out with is doing a really strong teaser trailer, or it doesn't always have to be a teaser because it could come out after the episode's dropped, usually on the day of. It's really strong, and do like a 1 or 2 minute promo that you can isolate the section of the interview. And sometimes people give us timestamps where it's 15 seconds here, 22 seconds here, 10 seconds here. We edit that together. We have a really strong promo. And then that has obviously 95% of people on social media are on their phones with the sound off, right? So if we know that people are experiencing Instagram, Facebook, and and LinkedIn and everywhere that you want them to be checking out your content with the sound off, it's really important to have subtitles. So what we do is the header bar, subtitles. We create content that's in a square format, because every place on social media that you place your content, it's going to look different. Sometimes it's stories, which is a vertical video. So we provide vertical videos. We provide square 1x1 videos. We do the cover art for your show, and we also do thumbnails. So when you put a video up on YouTube and you want people to look at it, if it doesn't have a thumbnail or something that shows, you and me together on it with a title, or something that's easy to understand what it is and looks good and it's appealing to click on, then it's very difficult to expect people to just tune into what you offer. So we make you sound good, look good, and get out the micro content as hooks in the water, so people want to tune into the whole thing.
And Mike, I know that podcasting has certainly grown in popularity because of the pandemic. Before I ask the question, I'll just share with you a very quick story. This podcast actually started because I was about to start a job, and then COVID hit, and then my contract got suspended, so I had some extra time. So hence the podcast, right?
Yeah.
So I'm curious to ask you about the pandemic and how it's helped podcasters really sort of mold themselves and get their message out, because a lot of people are at home and want something to do. So I know that podcasting is certainly grown in popularity. So I'm just wondering your thoughts on that as well.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely grown in popularity. I think like anything, when it gets released, when podcasting, it's been out for over a decade, obviously. And so when you have people that are seeing it, hearing it, people are talking about it, it's going to generate interest, and it takes time. There's that, what we call that tipping point, where 3% of the people know about something and use it on an everyday basis. And then they start talking and sharing about it, just like Netflix. Once 3% of the population had it and started telling their friends at the water cooler at work, or sharing it with their friends, and all of a sudden it took off. So podcasting is way beyond that. I saw a post on Mother's Day that it talked about women, and I'm not going to spit out the stats because I don't have them memorized, or I don't have them in front of me. But women like are embracing this as well. There's a lot of female focus and women empowerment podcasts that are coming out, which I love to see. It's a great way for people to. Here's why I feel podcasting is so great. It's storytelling in many ways. When you're doing it really well, it's storytelling like you and I are doing right here. And why that's important is people connect with stories, right? If you like a brand, really what you like is the story behind what that product or service feels like when you interact with it, when you see it out in the world, how it carries itself, the product, the service, the person you're working with. So it's all built through storytelling. And so podcasting is really strong because that's what it's really based on. To answer your question about the pandemic, I feel that really, a number of things are happening during this time, but a lot of people do have either extra time, and I wouldn't even necessarily say it's always because of extra time. I would say it's also because we're more efficient. At least I can speak for myself, where previous to the pandemic, if I wanted to meet people, I was doing a lot of coffee appointments, literally in person, sitting down, going to your office, sitting down with you, having a cup of coffee. I'd drive even if it was further away. Most of the time it was by car, but sometimes people would even fly to go to a bigger appointment, right, or close a big deal, and there'd be a lot of travel, and there's a lot of you might be lucky if you got 4 appointments in the same day. Well, now we could do these half-hour Zoom calls, and you can do a dozen of them in a day, right? And I mean, how many more people can you meet? How many more connections can you make? And how many more stories can you hear? And how many times can you share your story? So I think the efficiency is way up during the pandemic, which is allowing people to do more podcasts, where before I think it was like something that, man, maybe we'll connect next month and do it. Or if I come into your studio, I'll sit down with you and have a conversation. We'll record it if your videographer is there that day. And it just was kind of long. It took longer to plan. Now everybody's like, we're going to do our video conference. You're going to press record. We're in. We're on, right? So I think that is really what's driving it. But also it's a medium that's on fire right now. And to stand out, like I was talking about earlier, is doing those little things really well. Having great content, being yourself. I'd say if you're a host, even being vulnerable about who you really are. Transparency is key. Having strong content, and then how you're positioning it out into the world. I would recommend not to overthink it. So don't spend 2 years on trying to get your first episode out to polish it. And I would say don't just throw a bunch of stuff up and see if it sticks, because you only get one impression really, and you got like 3 seconds to make it. And people most likely today are not giving you a second chance. So if they listen to your show and you just rush it and it doesn't sound great, the chances of them 6 months from now trying to give you another shot is pretty low, unless you do something like in a rebranding way or they really love your guest. So that's what I would say about the pandemic. I think it's definitely helped the industry in many ways be more efficient.
And Michael, I'm curious to ask you about your own podcast, where you're the host of Mike Up, where you give people an opportunity to share inspiring stories. So I'm curious about the platform. How's it going for you, and what motivated you to start it?
Awesome. Yeah. So prior to having my own business in 2017 and prior to me launching my own podcast, I was in sales for over a decade, and I did a lot of travel in business. And when I was in the car, I used podcasts as a university on wheels. This was like 2015, 16. I was listening to people like Ed Milet when he was literally just getting started in his first interview with Tony Robbins. I heard Lewis House's story when he was on Power Players with Grant Cardone, and he was telling how he was getting off his sister's couch and had his football injury and lost the opportunity to play in the pros in the NFL, and then created his LinkedIn businesses and sold them and became this world-class entrepreneur. And he has one of the top podcasts in the world. But importantly, what I was listening to was inspiring content that was resonating with me. It was the messaging that I was putting into my head, which is really important for the audience to understand. Is we're so much like our self-talk and the things that we put out into the world has a lot to do with what we're putting into our brains, into our head, into our psyche. And so I was making sure, and any downtime I had, which I had to drive to where I was going to meet with a prospect or go to a business meeting, whatever it might be, or literally just drive to my office. That time I had to spend in the car, whether it was 20 minutes or an hour, whatever it would be. So why not learn something great, right? Why not take that opportunity to learn something you weren't going to if you didn't do that? And so I was learning from some of these great business people, men and women that were not only the hosts of their show, but they were interviewing people who were high performers. So that really resonated with me. It was something I was interested in. So in November of 2019, I remember having this tug at my heart, and I felt like God and the universe kind of got a hold of me. And they were telling me to start a show. And I wasn't sure exactly what it was going to look like or totally be about, but I knew that I wanted to inspire people the way that I was being inspired from other shows. And I felt that there's so many great people out in the world that need to get their story out. And it was like a dead end. Either they weren't doing it yet, or they weren't interviewed yet, or didn't have the opportunity. So I wanted to create the opportunity. So in November of 19, I launched my first episode of Mic'd Up. My mission is to inspire my audience to be brave and bold in pursuit of their dreams. We have over 80 episodes out, and I've had the privilege and honor of meeting world-class athletes, business people, entrepreneurs, keynote speakers, award-winning authors. I interviewed an Olympian gold medalist, just some really, really cool stories. And the best part of it is it's not an interview. Like Kevin, you're interviewing me right now, but you have a friend here in Buffalo, New York. You have someone you can now call. You could text me. You can, follow me on social and I'll follow you. And so I've built relationships with over 80 people that I would never have met, or at least at the level I did. They become friends now. And anyone who listens, whether it's one person or 1 million people that gets inspired by something from the show, it's worth my time and energy. I did not start the show to monetize it. I started the show because it was part of my purpose.
Yeah, absolutely, Mike. And I have to tell you that providing avenues of inclusion is always important. I commend you for the work that you've done with the platform. And if you ever need a guest, I'm only an email away, buddy.
I love it. Yeah, absolutely. That's what this is all about.
So, and I know that you live your life through a service of amongst self mentality. So I'm wondering where that mentality came from, because I know it's important for you to give back to your community as well.
Yeah. So the actual tagline of service above self is something I learned from Rotary. I was in my local Rotary group in West Seneca, New York, which is the town that I was currently live in, and I actually was born here as well. And the service above self is a Rotary or Rotarian mindset. And it's really just helping others before you feel like, it's me, me, me. So instead of like a little kid always walks around the world and they're like, me, 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 this is mine, like I want that, and this is mine, opposed to giving and just feeling like if I'm in a room with another person, how can I make their day better? Right. And that's just being of service to someone, is making someone laugh in the grocery line, or giving $5 to the person who might need it. They need it more than you do. You might not even have that much, but if you can give a little bit, what's a couple bucks, right? So if you can give that, give yourself, give your time, give your energy. Doing this interview right now, I'm not, you didn't ask me to pay for this, or I didn't have to pay for this, or whatever it might be. We're doing it for free because it's a service. We're helping people out. You're doing your show because you want to help your audience out. When you spend time networking with people, right? How can you actually serve them? They don't want to just be sold. They're looking to better their network. So if you meet someone like yourself, or you meet someone like me, or anyone else that's in our networking groups that we're a part of, how can we actually provide connections to them and be a resource to them without feeling anything like, hey man, if I send you this person, you better send me someone in return. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about just serving people, helping them out, being a connector, being a giver first. And just having the mindset of, literally, I want everyone who's listening to this right now, first of all, thank you for giving us your time. Secondly, how is this world better because you're on this planet? What is your purpose? So how can you serve? Like, in which way can you make a difference, is really what I want to get out to the audience here. So just think about, what is your purpose? What calls you into action, right? Like, how is the world a better place because you were born on it, right? And that's how I take every day, is just like, how can I make it a little bit better, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, I think that we're all placed on earth to make an impact. And one thing I tell people is that a life is a great gift, and what makes it extraordinary is what you do with it while you're here to make a positive difference. Absolutely. And Mike, I'm curious to ask you about your thoughts on what do you think makes a champion of change? When you hear that phraseology, what do you think of when you hear that, bud?
Yeah, champion of change to me means someone who's forward thinking. They're not stuck in their ways. Look, it's good to have important values and not be flimsy on what you believe in. But a champion of change is someone who says, hey, if we're doing it this way for 50 years and it's been working pretty good. But now Kevin comes to my office and he's pitching me something that's supposed to help us out in some way, and we're just going to kick him out because we've done it this old school way, but we know it works. That's not really being a champion of change. A champion of change is say, okay, how can we learn, grow, adapt, update our processes in some way to be even better. It's a forward-minded thought process of being better every day. And so if you're doing well right now, can you do even better? The answer, of course, is yes. Nobody's ever a finished product. You could be one of one world-class champion in whatever you're doing, but you can still get better. And that's the people who consistently win in life, in business, in their personal health, with their families, whatever it might be, is they are champions of change because they're willing to learn and grow and admit that they don't ever have it all figured out. Nobody does. And also, if you're stuck and you're not looking to learn, grow, and adapt, like if you were in the front office or the C-level of Blockbuster when Netflix came in and pitched you on the idea of doing more of a digital service, right? Instead of the people come in and they rent the video and go home, whatever, or do the mail only subscriptions, right? And not offer the on-demand style. And they're like, no, we're going to continue to do it our way, right? We've been doing this for so long, it's great. And then let those guys walk out of there instead of saying, man, we could really maybe do what we're doing now and slowly change and bring this in and see how it works. They would have done that. Who knows? Blockbuster could be an app on our phones that we all every night watch Blockbuster instead of Netflix. But they were not champions of change. And now I think they have one store or no stores in the entire world, right? In 2021 as we record this. So being a champion of change is admitting you don't always have it figured out and being willing to grow. And then also if something comes in that you're not super familiar with, get all the information you need to make a sound decision to move forward. But be willing to at least see it, listen to something that may not be comfortable to you because there's a lot of growth and discomfort.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you talked about earlier, social media is a big part of getting a podcast message out. So I'm curious to ask you about success on social media and how your message as a podcaster doesn't get oversaturated or mixed in with everybody else. How do you think we stand out on social media in particular?
Yeah, I would say go and check out and see what people who are winning are doing. So if someone has the amount of followers you're looking for, not that we should always be chasing vanity metrics, but if you see someone who's doing really well in business or in social media, right? Sometimes those are both. They're doing well in social media and in business, and sometimes they look like they're doing well in business, but they're only doing well in social media, which is not really that great of a win, right? But my point is, I would go and look to see what people are doing in your industry that you're aspiring to be. But it's super important at the same time to be authentic, to be vulnerable and willing to tell your story, share your story, and get micro content out. Again, if you're only posting the long form content and saying on LinkedIn, like click my YouTube video and that's it, like you got to listen to the whole 52 minutes. Then it's like, I don't have 52 minutes right now, and they might not listen to any of it. So have position your content to be interesting and provide value and be you. And so be yourself, right? I love the quote, be yourself, everyone else is taken. And I think don't worry so much about the numbers. I think the numbers come when people connect with you, people like what you're doing. And of course they got to find you and stuff. So I would say, if you have the budget for it, you can spend and do social media campaigns, which is a great way of great cost. Obviously, the ROI is super strong still on social media advertising. So if you have the budget, I recommend doing that. Don't just throw money at something. Don't just simply boost a post on Facebook or Instagram. If you're going to pay to spend, work with a professional and make sure you have a call to action. If there's something you're looking to get them to click on something, or there's a reason that they're going to download your free guide or go to your website, what's in it for them? You have to always ask, am I just sending someone to another place? Why would they want to leave Instagram? So have that offer, have that figured out. But I would say the most Think about who you follow on social media. I'm not talking about you, Kevin, but yourself and anyone listening. And then ask yourself, why do I follow them? And then if someone asks that about you, what's the answer? Are they going to say, I follow Mike DiCioccio because he inspires me through his guests, or I like his content because it's positive minded and I need that in my day because there's too much negativity? Or are they going to say, I don't know, it just blends in. It's the same as everybody else, right? So that's what I would say is do self-evaluation. And I'm looking to learn, grow, and change every single day. So I'm not telling you I have everything figured out, because as soon as you do, it changes, right? Especially in social media, the algorithms change daily almost. So when that's being tweaked, you got to learn, grow, and adapt to it. But always be yourself. That's the most important thing. And be transparent. It'll take you places.
Absolutely. And what do you think makes a good podcast interview itself? What do you think people need to do to produce a good podcast interviews?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I would say preparation. The pros are going to be prepared. They're not just going to turn the lights on and press record. Now, you can do that at times and maybe get away with it. But I would say it's always really important to prepare and know who you're talking to, understand their style. So if you're going to interview someone or do your own show with content, be prepared on what you want to talk about. Don't be too robotic. Do not read. The only time I read in my show is when I'm reading a bio, but I don't do it where I'm like, okay, I'm going to grab this sheet of paper and look down and be like, okay, so today Kevin is here on the show. So do it some way. I actually look up at my screen and I have it on my computer screen. And I do it in a way where it's like, hey, today on our show, we have XYZ and they've done 1, 2, 3, and let's get them on the show. Welcome, Kevin, right? And I bring the guest on, similar to like if it was late night and they came down and the lights and the music were going. So I would say have some fun and energy behind it. Yeah, energy is a big one too. Connection between two people. So obviously, if you can maybe even do the first 1 or 2 minutes, if you've never met the guest, before you press record, like you and I did, we talked for a minute or two. Hey, how's it going? We emailed a few times, so we had a little bit of rapport built, but you just got a level of comfort with me, and then you started recording. So I recommend prepare, have fun, have a genuine, you know, don't try to put on this like persona that's not really you. Be genuine, be real, have fun, and then also the guest. You have to think about them. You are not. Don't interview someone and then make the show about you. Like really, a good interviewer like you are, Kevin, is you prepare questions, but you also don't just ask the question. You'll ask a follow up. You're listening. You got to be a great listener, just like in sales, and then you follow along. And if your next question isn't the right one, you don't just say, okay, all right, now we're going to go into my next question or whatever. Like if there's a really good conversation going on and the energy is strong, you got to be really good at feeling that and knowing you want to take it there. The other part of it is if you go too far off on a tangent, a really good host is good at reeling people back in. That's why I always have a skeleton. Those questions for me are a skeleton to say, this is really where we want to dance. And you can be over here and they could be over here. But if someone's out in left field for 20 minutes on a tangent, then I would say, let's reel them back in. So those are a couple little takeaways I would say to have a strong podcast interview. Some of the key elements I would say are those few items.
Yeah, thanks for the advice, Mike. It was sound advice, and I'm sure the audience will enjoy it. I know that you live in Buffalo, Mike, so I want to talk about chicken wings now and your favorite there, and what else you enjoy doing for fun in Buffalo, bud.
Well, I want to say thank you for calling them chicken wings and not buffalo wings, because everyone who calls them buffalo wings are not from Buffalo, and it's like obvious, right? So we just call them wings. Like, hey, we're getting wings. You can call them chicken wings, but typically it's, hey, we're going out. Let's order wings. And the way I always enjoyed having a chicken wing is I like crispy. So I like it to have mild and crispy, which some people love to douse them in sauce. I usually you get like sauce kind of in the bottom of the bowl, but I order them crispy so they have a good bite. And I also, you got to dip them in blue cheese too. We don't use ranch here in Buffalo. You can see someone sticking out of the crowd if they are using ranch over blue cheese. A lot of people who might say blue cheese is gross or disgusting. it's just here it come when you order pizza and wings, or just wings by themselves, it always comes with celery, carrots, and a little thing of blue cheese. And yeah, the blue cheese was, I believe, originally only for the carrots and the celery, but we we didn't stop there. We would dip our wings right in the blue cheese, and now some places even make them where you can get blue cheese on them while they're grilled and everything. Or it just wings here are, there's so many different kinds. There's so many different levels you can get. Some people try to outdo you with Frank's hot sauce and douse it. To me, I enjoy a crispy wing that's light, like mild, that just has the flavor of a wing to it, and you don't really need to add too much flavor, because then you're just tasting whatever's added and not the actual chicken wing. And it's got to have good meat on it. So if you're eating a chicken wing and it's these little tiny things, like, get that out of here. We need a good size wing, and the right flavor, and you don't need to dress it up to make it taste good. That being said, I actually recently, I no longer eat meat. So I know that might sound crazy that I'm from Buffalo and I don't eat wings right now, but I grew up always eating meat. But my father, actually, I mentioned he passed away with COVID, but he also battled with colon cancer. And so that was an eye opener for me. I know red meat is a big part of cancer prevention. Colon cancer prevention is getting rid of red meats, and I just look more into meat in general, and also just the the whole animal rights thing, and just doesn't feel right to me anymore to do it. Someone's listening to this and they're like, "This guy's crazy," or "We don't believe that." Hey, fine. You guys all have your own hearts and your own minds, and you can do what you want. But for me, I cut that out of my diet altogether. But so it's been a little while since I've had one. But if I'm gonna have a chicken wing, got to go with that mild, light Frank sauce, and a good Buffalo pizzeria is gonna do it right for you.
Mike, we're not that far away, so next time I'm in your area, we should get together and you can show me the greater parts of Buffalo if you're up
I would
for
love
it,
to do
buddy.
that. I would do that for sure, and you can eat all the chicken wings you want. I will have all the celery and carrots.
Sounds good. There's nothing wrong with a little green vegetables, huh? For sure. And
Yeah.
I'm curious to ask you about whether you've given any thought to how you want your personal or professional legacy to be defined, Mike.
Wow, that's a huge question. Another good one. I have a beautiful 6-year-old daughter, and really everything I do now is tied back to her, showing her the ways of life, being the best dad I can. I don't have all the answers for her, but I do my best every day, and I hope that I know she sees it, but I hope that has long-term meaning to her. And my legacy to her would be really to set up my family, her, and future generations in a way that I can really take care of them after I'm gone. So from a financial freedom standpoint, and really what I'd like my legacy to be, it's not just how many dollars this person made, because that very rarely is someone going to be at your gravesite or at your funeral and like just talk about the money you made. That's doesn't resonate with people. And do I care about that? Yeah, because to me, money is access. So that's part of the story why I mentioned financial freedom. But truthfully, when I'm gone, and if I'm blessed to live another, I'm 35, so hopefully I get another 50 years or so or more on this planet, right? I love my legacy to be about how I brought up people around me, made them better, lived a service above self mentality, helped out the community that I was in, and inspired people around the world through my show. So I have people say, I tuned into Mic'd Up and I started my business because I was inspired by his conversation. Or, I worked with Social Chameleon, and he helped my podcast go from start to where I'm at today. He went to my business meeting and he spoke on stage, and like just the whole audience lit up with energy, that kind of stuff, right? Or from personal friends and family saying, "Oh, he just stories of times that they spent with me where in some way, shape, or form, they feel that the energy was better because I was in that room than if I wasn't." So that's really what I want my not just want it to be. That's what I'm really trying to put out into the world, and unselfishly do that, because if there's things I can do to make the world better, then I feel that's actually my responsibility. I think that's all of our responsibility. We're not here to collect dust. We're here to make this place better in some way, shape, or form. So that's what I would love people to connect my story back to. Not about me, but more so the things and people that were impacted in a positive way.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Mike. And I'm curious, for those that would want to get connected with you, what's the best way they can do that?
Absolutely. So if you're listening only and you don't see our name or anything on the screen right now, but my last name is pronounced DiCioccio, and it's spelled DiCioccio. So all my social is at Mike DiCioccio. So I'm most active on Instagram. You can find me at Mike DiCioccio. It's also the same on Twitter. You can connect with my personal account on Facebook if you'd like. Reach out, say hello. Just search Mike DiCioccio. I'm in Buffalo, New York, as we talked about. And if you're interested in my podcast, simply go to mikeduppodcast.com. It's MIKED uppodcast.com, Mic'd Up. And you can listen in and tune in there. And on LinkedIn, I'm pretty active there as well. I do get quite bombarded in my inbox. I'm not always as timely as I like on responses, but I hang out more on Instagram. So that's where I'm going to see if you want to send me a message or engage with content. Check it out. It's at Mike DiCioccio, and that's where we can hang out.
Well, Mike, I want to thank you for the work you do in the podcasting space and helping people get their messages out to the masses. And I want to thank you for joining me today. It's most appreciated.
Kevin, you're a great interviewer. This was a lot of fun, and I'm honored that you reached out to allow me to share my story today. And I hope we help one person, but hopefully many, many more than that.